This conversation about branding is so spot on because when you really start to pay attention to the world around you, you can pick up on the ones that aren't consistent and the ones that are.
Yeah.
And the ones that are consistent, they're the ones that are thriving.
They continue to, thrive is because they're putting money back into marketing, putting their brand out there. That's just how you do it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the FIP Printing Pros podcast. I'm your host, Josh Dynison. Again, with me as always, I got my co-host, Chris Lockwood. And today what we're going to be talking about is branding and why it is so critically important for your company, your personal brand, whatever it is that you're representing. And we're going to kind of jump into that today, and hopefully you're able to take some good tidbits from it and help you. So start off, basically, obviously we both got logoed shirts today. So
I wear this one specifically for this podcast.
So what you're representing is you do some real estate investing and things like that. You have a property group that you're a part of. That's what you're representing today. And obviously I've got our company brand on today. So FIP not Printing Pros, First Impressions Printing is what our company is. So branded items, I guess we could start there. That's kind of one of the things that we do, obviously, with our company.
Yeah.
But it's extremely important for just any business, not just because we do branding for our company. It's important for us, obviously, because we should represent what we're doing. But every company, and if you want to jump into, we've obviously had a lot of discussions around this brand.
Yeah, it's funny. We were right before we started recording this, we both grabbed our cups. And I'm like, we should probably have something that we can sit here on the table and.
I mean, I have Yosemite.
We could.
National Park on mine.
Dude, what's that subliminal messaging? It's, just put it up there and flash the phone number, But, branding, right? It's, and I wore this shirt is an example of why it's so important to have the right brand, have the right message and all of that, because, no matter where you go, you want people to see you as whatever that is, right?
Yep.
So for this one, it's the Valhalla Investment Property Management Group. We came up with a logo and all that kind of stuff, but there's more on this shirt than that. I mean, you also have the U.S. flag, right? And on yours, you have the U.S. flag. And just as a really quick side note, I've had people say there's like your flag is backwards on your sleeve, and it's like, no, it's not. So if anybody ever sees people in a military uniform, or they see the grunt style T-shirts or any other shirt that has the flag pointed that it seems like it's in the wrong direction, here's why. And this branding is so important because it's the subliminal things that stick with you, right?
Yep.
So the reason it is like that is when you are charging into battle, holding the flag is in front, it's going to be waving behind you. So the stars are going in front. That's why it's like that. So, but consistency. If you look across just about any shirt that has that, the U.S. flag on it, it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's also going to be on the right shoulder. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know the history of that part. I'm sure there's some reason out there for it, but it's usually on the right shoulder too. So next time you're in the store, kind of pay attention to that. But on your shirt, you have the FIP, the First Impressions Printing logo.
Yep.
You have the Patriot line on there as well.
Yep.
So two separate brands, but they're both your companies.
Yep.
And they're both important to what you do. So that brings me to, probably the first part of the topic we could talk about is the personal branding and why that's important. So you have established yourself as what? What is your personal brand?
So, business owner, I guess. And, what I've been trying to really do is, obviously this podcast is a part of it, putting myself out there, which, it's way outside of my comfort zone, which we've kind of talked a little bit about on here, that, I may look comfortable on here or anything like that, but it is a very uncomfortable thing for me to totally do, is get on camera in my face,
Yeah.
and do these type of things, but I'm trying to do what the company needs for me to do. And sometimes that is things, outside of your comfort zone. like this. But as far as like even personal branding, you have to really think about like everything you're doing in your life, because especially as a business owner or higher end employee, honestly, any employee,
yeah,
not even really, not even just because, I've had some people come in that are clients, and they're representing their company coming in to talk to us, but most unprofessional people in the world in many different ways, whether it's organization, just foul mouth, whatever it is, they're just talking trash about their own company while they're there with us, different things like that just aren't a good like look for the company. And so personal brand isn't, in my opinion, just for the business owner. I mean, obviously as the business owner, it is extremely key for you to have a good personal branding and out there. But, for me personally, like it's easy for me because I'm just trying to be myself. Like I'm not trying to put a facade on or anything like that. But the one way I would say that I do have to sometimes be a little more careful, is maybe like just on very touchy subjects, like on my social media and things like that. I just don't even try to go there, too much. Now, the one thing I will not shy away from is my faith, because that's just, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to shy away from putting who I am out there with my faith.
Yeah.
But also, I'm not trying to shove it down people's throats either.
Right, that's a big difference, right? So, we just had a very tense political season last year.
Yeah.
And, I've heard people actually come into the shop and say things, and whether I agree with them or not, when it comes to particular political parties, left, right, center, doesn't matter. It's like, why is that important to what we're talking about? And when you do that, especially as a business owner or someone representing your company, you alienate 50% of your customer base.
Yep.
And there are people out there. There's some people that don't care.
Yeah.
But then there's people out there that's like, oh no, you're a Biden supporter, you're a Trump supporter, you're a whatever supporter. I'm not going to do business with you.
Yeah.
But my business we do good quality work.
Yeah.
Why would what I think personally affect that? So yeah, you're right. The personal brand is really important. I agree. Don't shy away from your faith. But where's that line? That line is, I'm not saying, hey, if you don't think like me or you don't come over to my side, I'm not going to print this for you. I'm not going to do this for you, anything like that, Now, I think people should have their convictions, and if they want to stand on them, let them stand on them.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I don't think that you as a business owner should be forced to do something that you don't agree with either.
Yep. And we've seen that in the social media realms where there's people that refuse to do things for a different type of population, whatever that looks like. And there's many different ways, whether it's religion, sex, creed, whatever it is.
You name it. There's been somebody out there that's refused it or wanted to force it. Yeah.
I'm not like that. Listen, I first of all, I can't afford to be like that. I was like, if I was trying to, first of all, and me generally as a person, I don't really alienate anybody by any means. I can get along with anybody, even whatever it's religion, political, whatever. I have friends on all over the place. As long as you can be cool with me, I'm cool with you. I don't sit there and try to argue with people just because they think differently than me.
Now, with that being said, there are some lines like Nazi propaganda.
Oh well, yes, that's true.
Crazy out there,
I won't.
Everybody's got to have a line. So.
I won't hang out with Nazis or anything like that. But typically what I mean is those, the people I hang out with aren't the people that are very segregated and only, this is the only way of life and anything like that. But, again, as a business owner, you have to just walk that carefully because just social media, everything, you have to be careful how you comment, how you post, how you do anything like that, because people have eyes, and if they see it, you could lose a customer because.
Yeah, and, that goes for employees too, right? And you mentioned high-level employees, and he's like really any employees, but that kind of goes for them too. If they're in a capacity to where they're representing the business, like I think about, like, I don't get on Facebook much, so I don't know if on Facebook it says I work here, or maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah, you can do
LinkedIn,
that.
it's a big part of LinkedIn,
Yeah.
right? And so in a professional setting like that, like, you got to be real careful. Or if you're going to like marketing events, or you're going to business meetings or anything like that, like if you're representing your company, you got to be careful on how you do that, because that can affect your brand,
Yep.
in a profound way. So,
Well, even we've talked about in the past episodes about hiring and things like that, and part of the hiring process nowadays is going to look at people's social medias and see what they're putting out there, because it shows a representation of not always their true character, because I know some people that are very good character, but they're very out there with their thoughts on social media. So I don't think it always represents them. However, somebody sees that, it's a prejudgment without even know them fully of what really they represent and what their thoughts are. So that's a thing you have to think about. Not only that, say you are already with the company, and not every state is this way, but Florida is, I can't remember what the technical word is. You can fire somebody without a reason.
right to work. I think
Right.
most states are right
Right
to
to
work. Yeah.
There's some states are more protective.
There's a handful. Yeah.
But like in Florida, like you could fire somebody without cause. Like I mean not. There's usually a reason, obviously, but like you don't have to. There's not specific reasons that you can only fire for. So like if somebody sees things they don't like that you're representing out on yourself, and you work for them, and plus you have you on your social media says you work for the company, they could fire you for that if they really wanted to. So a lot of things to keep in mind as an employee too with that.
Yeah. When we talk about the personal brand, and we can shift to like how to actually brand, your company and those kind of things. But when I'm thinking about the personal brand, so there was a while there to where, my personal brand was very much tied to my employer at the time. And my online persona, everything I talked about, everything I did had more to do with promoting the company than it did my thing, right? And I'm not saying like to put myself over the company or anything like that, but everything that I did, everything I talked about was, because of the company, not the things that I was trying to accomplish outside of that. So, a couple of examples, like I'm a certified high performance coach. So, if I wanted to brand myself about that, like I should be talking about that on my social media and all those kind of things. I invest in real estate, so I should be talking about that. And what happens when you do that, when you're consistent with that message, you start attracting those kind of people.
Yep.
That are either looking for coaching, or they want to invest, or they are investors, or whatever. But you have to be consistent. You have to remain consistent. But I just always encourage people, it's okay to promote your business. Even as a business owner, you want to promote your business. But if people only see Josh as FIP, well, now it's going to make it really hard for Josh to go out there and say, hey, I also do Patriot Line. I also do this clothing brand that I'm working on. I also do this other thing, because now all they see you as is FIP. So when you're creating your personal brand, you want it to complement what your work is if it's involved in that. I mean, if you work at, just some tech firm, but you on the side you're actually a photographer, then there's no lines there. Like it's separate. So you just brand yourself as a photographer. You go do your day job. But if you're a tech guy and you're developing, and you have a tech company and you're developing this computer program on the side, it can get real hard to where it's like, oh, your company's doing this. No, that's me. So, or if you're going to own multiple businesses. So I would say that's important to maintain that distinction.
Yeah, and I think on the personal branding side of things, it's also important to make sure that there's some humanization there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Where like you said, you don't want to be all about the business or something like that, because people need to see who you are, who you are as a person. Like putting pictures with your wife and family and kids, and whatever that looks like. You go into whatever it is that you love. If like for me, I'm a huge a sports fanatic. So like sports are like my joy. Like I'm pretty frugal with my money for the most part. But the things I do spend money on are sporting events.
Yeah.
You know, like that's my extra money I spend things on rather than like, a lot of going out to eat and doing a bunch of whatever things that other people enjoy doing. My thing is like going to be in sports. So like, obviously I'm posting about sports a lot and things like that and passionate about that. And then obviously going on trips with my wife, so like that's the things we love to do and put it out there.
Yeah.
So having some humanization out there too, so they get to know me as a person a little bit as well. Like I said, while being careful of not like putting too much of my cards out there to where I'm alienating anybody too much. But like I'm a Gator fan, so I might alienate.
So you just alienated 160 other colleges out there.
Yeah. I think most people understand everybody's got their fan base, so that shouldn't alienate. If somebody alienates me just because I'm a fan of a certain team, like I don't know if I would.
I don't know, man. Some of them Philly fans, I don't know. We'll
That's
see.
true. That's true.
So when it comes to branding for the company, or for a company, where do you recommend people start with that?
Well, I mean,
first, hold on. Let's define what branding is. Like what are the elements of your brand? What would you say that is?
I mean, you really have to when you're like first starting up, it can be difficult because, it can be costly to really try to put stuff out there because just to create a logo, unless you've got a really good connection, or if you go to like Fiverr or somewhere like that, you could get a pretty decent cheap logo for, anywhere from $50 to a couple $100, but again, some of these people are like starting off with like no money. So even that could be a stretch for them to try to do something like that. So, but obviously we've had this conversation. I think that you should try to make sure you are in a good financial state before you try to take that leap. But some of these people are trying to do like a side hustle type thing, So it's not necessarily taking a leap fully yet. They're still working their job, and they're trying to build something on the side. I just think with that, you have to be really, like we've talked about, be very money conscious, frugal, save some money to the side, then start to build your brand out. Now you're getting the logo. That's where you start, in my opinion. And then you start then going from there, building. If you can build a website yourself, because there's a lot of these things you can get on Shopify and things like that. You can self-build. My wife built her website for her online boutique she's trying to start and build. Unfortunately, she's in that it's a side hustle thing for her.
Yeah.
So her career is taking too much of her time right now. She hasn't been able to fully focus on that. But she built it herself, and it took time, but it didn't really cost a lot of money. Then from there, logo is their website. And again, the website I wouldn't say depends on what you're doing.
Yeah.
For her, it had to be a website because she's putting products on there to sell, and there's wholesalers and everything like that she pulls the data in to put on the website. So hers was that was her next step. Let's just say for somebody who wants to get in the print business or something like that, logo, website isn't necessary because, I still don't even have the best website. We're still working on revamping that as we speak. And all of our customers, as you know, nobody orders online right now. That's why we're trying to get a more better e-commerce website to do that. So for somebody trying to get us, it's trying to know. So for us, you want to start probably then get a business cards and then a T-shirt or something like that you can have a brand when you're out there, or a name badge. Doesn't even have to be spending on a shirt. You can just wear whatever shirt you got and get a little $15 name badge or something like that.
Yeah, and there's other really, really simple things that you can do, right? So I do woodworking on the side. It's it's what keeps me from sitting in front of the TV. And, putting out good product is important. First of all, if you don't have a good product, your brand reputation is going to be shit anyway. So have a good product, even if you're a one-man band, have good customer service. If someone messages you I'm not saying you got to message right back right away, but it shouldn't take you no more than an hour to get back to someone and answer their question or respond or something like that.
So to that point, real quick, just to interject. I don't know. I forwarded it to you at the end of the day, so you might not have looked at it yet. But the big order, we just got a big order from a brand new customer, and I asked him because we thought maybe it was email marketing or something like that we did that got him. And so I reached out to him and said, just curious, how'd you find out about us? Cause
I did see that, yeah.
Because we're always trying to like understand what's working for our marketing efforts and things like that. And he said it's because he found us listed on one of the websites that we have like listed as a vendor or whatever. And he said, so that's why he messaged me, but he said he messaged a bunch of people that he saw on there. And I was super quick to respond, and that's what really sold. That's what sold him.
I'm telling you, that's a huge thing is being responsive. You know, when you look at surveys and stuff like that, one of the questions is how responsive was whoever. And, you know, so that's really important, number one. Number two, have a Facebook page. Like, it's free to set up. Takes like 5 minutes. Be consistent on your messaging and on your posting. And when I say consistent, I don't mean you have to do it every day. Like, we hire media minds to help us with that because, you know, none of us were the experts on doing it, number one. Number two, the time to do it, right? And I mean, just in that. And then, you know, when I send out emails, I have my social media links in any email. And I mean, the clicks we get on that is like, it's insane. It's just the little things on the bottom of the email, and we get like hundreds of clicks on that. And when people see that, like you said, like when you're fixing to start doing business, they're going to go research you. You know, they're going to go look at your Facebook page. They're going to go look at your, you know, your online presence. Do you have a YouTube, you know, channel? All those kind of things they're going to go and look at. So even if you don't want to do it, like you mentioned at the very beginning, you know, this is part of building that brand is doing this podcast. I'm going to have to start putting out videos on YouTube about the woodworking that I do. Not because I want to, not because I want to become an influencer or anything like that, but I know people are curious to see how the process is done. So I'm going to put the process out there, hopefully sell more products, all that kind of stuff. We're doing the same thing. We're putting the process out there of how you do it. So your brand is more than just how your logo looks. You do need a good logo. I think that's super important. But it's also your messaging, your response time, your customer service. All of those things play a factor in how people see you. Yep. As you grow, as you get more, I don't know if advanced is the right term. You're doing more and more business. There's more things that you have to start thinking about and doing it when it comes to your brand. Yeah. You know, for example, I don't know if you paid attention to it, but we recently, within the past month or so, started requesting more and more Google reviews. Yes. We'll put these little cards and things we ship out, we deliver, and over the last 2 weeks, organically, we've gotten like 4 or 5 new Google reviews. And so that's part of that brand building is to get those reviews and you know, you got to ask for them because people aren't just going to go and give it unless you screw something up. Then they're happy to tell the world about it. Yep. So, you know, when we're talking about brand, like there's actually people in companies that's their whole job is, you know, brand maintenance. Yep. Brand reputation management. Yep. Is what it's called. Yep. So yeah, super important to do that. So what are some things that can ruin a brand?
Well, some of it we talked about is trying to get into things that you probably shouldn't when you're involved in a business, at least owner or even high up in the company, because that could. What we all know, everybody that's watching this podcast knows how crazy one side or the other can be about things on the political stuff. So I just stay away from that stuff as much as I possibly can. Sometimes I put certain opinions out there, but I've tried to be very careful when I do that.
Even when you do opinions, you want it to be, I always like to do it kind of logically. Yeah. Like, okay, I see what you're saying here, but what about, that kind of
Yeah,
thing?
and sometimes it's about the approach too, because if you're coming out attacking or anything like that,
All right, yeah.
then you're really gonna come off in the wrong light. The other things you could do wrong, it may not hurt you, but in the long grand scheme of things, does is say I have this logo on this shirt, but then I'm wearing a hat that's got a different. One of our logos is just not consistent logos, and then on Facebook I've got a different logo. Well, it's different.
I was saying what logo.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if your personal brand or the company's brand or something like that, if you got one brand here that's this look, then this look, and then Facebook's a different look and everything, and then now, like, are people going to fully recognize you because they're seeing 5 different looks?
Oh, yeah.
They're seeing 5 different. Now, some of that you do kind of have to do, say, for like what we do on the physical branding, because some of like the promotional products, maybe cost efficiency is one color imprint is going to be the most cost efficient way to do it than a full color. Like ours is a full color. So some of our items are one color. However, like the inside, the FIP printing part of it is still the same. Nothing changes. Just you don't get the color splashes. And
Well, yeah,
like
I think
that.
on the hat, matter of fact, I got it sitting over there. The hats, because of how the material is, like it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have the splash effect, but when you see it, it's still the same
Look.
same look. And maybe, during this show, I can cut in a picture so people see what we're talking about. But yeah, it's still consistent with what the brand is.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really important thing. I'm trying to think of what was the one? Oh, the Mandela effect. To where, it was like, oh, I remember this thing looking this way, but it doesn't. I think the one I remember is the Fruit of the Loom, where they said it did or didn't have a cornucopia around their symbol, right? Well, they actually found a patent for it, so that's
Gotcha.
They were trying to trick the world with that one. But does that mean your logo can't change over time? No, it can still change.
No, this has evolved.
But it can't change every week.
Yeah.
And it can't go back and forth.
Yeah.
But it's also an opportunity when you do a rebranding to have a big launch, to make a big deal out of it.
Yep.
Because, hey, we have one of the ones that sticks out the most to me, Twitter, right? Twitter still operates
For the most part.
mostly the same. I mean, it's a little more of the Wild Wild West right now, so I find it rather entertaining. I never got on Twitter before, but I find it a little bit entertaining now. But it went from Twitter to X, right? And so now, like I was listening to a podcast that Elon Musk was on, and somebody asked him, he goes, so I mean, do you still tweet? And he goes, that's kind of what people call it, but we just call it posting.
Yeah.
And so when you the point behind that is when you change your brand, sometimes you don't realize the other effects that it can have.
Yep.
Now, if FIP changes something, I don't think it's going to change the way the world talks. I don't. If it does, that would be cool. But Twitter changed, like it took away a major part of our vocabulary. We're tweeting something like that's technically not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
So,
and to go with that is part of the reason why that is so important is, for a smaller brand like ours that mostly it's, locally known, not really a big ginormous name across the United States or anything like that. But I'm thinking like, say, anything like in the store shelves or anything. We had this conversation where if you're inconsistent branding where you got 5 different looks out there, then in the aisles when there's all this different competition with different branding and everything like that, you want them to recognize your brand and choose you because, oh yeah, I've seen that logo like all over the place, so they must be good or something like that.
Well, yeah, I used to tell my recruiters the example that I would give them because when you're in any kind of sales, like you got to do a lot of self promotion. You got to put yourself out there, all that kind of stuff. And I used to tell them, I'm like, if your spouse called you and said, hey, I need you to go pick up laundry detergent on the way home, and you go into that laundry detergent aisle, and if any of y'all have never been in there, go in there and just get overwhelmed because there are 57,000 choices. And even within the same brand, they have 18 different things to choose from.
Yep.
But what's going to stick with you is not what's sitting at the house right now, unless you've been there to buy it before. Like, you don't remember. Like, I don't know what we have. I haven't got a clue.
I've bought it before, and
then you bring it home and it's like, this is not what we use. And it's like, well, you should have told me what. You shouldn't have just said get laundry detergent, because I picked up the thing that I saw the most.
Yeah.
I picked up the thing that stuck in my head that was repetitive over and over and over again. I saw print ads. I saw it on TV. An ad popped up on Facebook because I put in my notes, pick up laundry detergent. All of a sudden, Tide's popping up in there.
Yep.
You know, so that's why brand consistency is so important. And again, like you said, if you're getting mixed signals because the logo looks different, or it's inconsistent, the message is inconsistent, come get the best laundry detergent, save your washing machine, something else, like make your dryer more efficient. Like, what are we doing here?
This detergent is kid friendly.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let's stick to a message here, because now you're trying to play to everyone.
Yep.
And so you're getting no one.
Yep.
And so just stick to the damn message, and you'll get the market share that you need.
Yep, definitely. You kind of mentioned a little bit, you want to know your target audience. So like making sure you're niching down to what your branding is centered around who you're trying to target necessarily.
Yeah, actually, I think we're going to talk about that in the next
episode.
Podcast. Yeah, that'll.
Yeah. But that's important too, is kind of really understanding who you're talking to when you are branding. Now, for companies like us, we're very, we can work with all businesses, so it does make it a little more difficult for somebody like us, because we can, our customer base is so wide. And so same thing with like a laundry detergent. Everybody needs laundry detergent. So like their customer base is so wide, but still getting your branding consistently down to a certain message that can be to everybody is really key. Because if you, I don't know, laundry detergent is the one we're throwing out there, but I don't know how you could really segregate a population. Hopefully everybody washes their clothes.
And they're not eating the detergent.
Yeah.
Laundry detergent, safe for consumption.
Yeah, but as far as other things, as far as to be careful with and what that could hurt you on a branding side, I'm just thinking from our perspective, like there's different promotional products that you can do. Like there are calendars that are out there that I'm just gonna throw it out there that there's like nudie calendars that you can throw a logo on. So you have to be careful, like. Now, what is your target audience? Are they going to be okay with the fact that you're throwing your logo on a nudie calendar or something like that? Which we've had like truck drivers, companies, all the truck drivers have, want their little calendars to stick up in their trucks or whatever, but so that works for them, but it's not going to work for everybody else. Some people would be turned off hardcore by somebody trying to hand that out with their company name on it or something like that. So you really have to understand, what you're targeting to make sure you're branded, and you don't end up segregating too many people by what you're putting your brand on. Or even if you're, say you're sponsoring something, that's another way of branding is sponsoring. And you have to be careful what you're putting your logo attached to as a sponsorship, because do you know what they're representing well enough? Are they going to be a good look for your company that you're sponsoring them? Because I've had that happen where I actually had somebody, won't break it down to what it was because I don't want to get into that, but let's just say I thought I knew what it was, and I knew them personally, but then I didn't realize what the organization was. And then when I found out what they were doing, I didn't feel comfortable with my brand being tied to it. So I had to hey, sorry, let's just take my name off of that stuff. Like, sorry, I'm not trying to, because I don't want to associate.
Well, especially if it's going to alienate or,
Correct.
Those kind of things, and it's not just whatever that particular organization is, but sometimes you might have to look who's behind the organization too for that specific reason. And
that's what I'm saying. The person I knew, I didn't think I had to worry, but then apparently the other people involved were there's some things that are questionable enough that I didn't want to be.
You always want to err on the side of caution.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another thing that you have to kind of be careful of. And
I kind of mentioned earlier. I also think that just doing a good job is important. I did a delivery. Was it this week or last week? I can't remember what it was. And it was one of those things to where, it actually been about a couple weeks ago. Anyway, it was for the same office, but they had 2 locations. And I took it and I dropped everything off and I was getting ready to go do another delivery, and I went and I did something and I looked and I was like, I still have paperwork for them. I was like, why don't I have paperwork? And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's a whole other address, right? And so I went back, I picked it up, and I took it to the right office. And because I went that extra step, even though I didn't have to, they're like, oh my God, you didn't have to come back and do this. You could have, whatever. Because I went back and did that extra step and I got it, and I literally drove it all the way across town to where it was supposed to go. Those kind of things make a huge difference.
Yep.
So if you make a mistake, own it. You want to put out a good product. You want the right people out there representing you that's going to do the right thing. And everybody's going to mess up. We're going to make mistakes, right? As long as you're not, consistent at messing up or making mistakes, then a mistake is a mistake.
Yep.
But you got to put out a good product. You got to have your customer service people need to be trained. Whoever's answering your phones need to be trained. Here's how you deal with customers. Even if they're the nicest person in the world, saying the right thing the wrong way can be just as damaging as saying the wrong thing the right way.
Yep.
I've heard people, and not in our office, but just been on the other end of someone answering the phone, and just the way they said things was just like, whoa, this, what's going on here? So how well you do your job, who you have representing you, if you have the wrong people or you don't train them, you don't set the right standards, then that can also damage your reputation.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think when you think of branding, you typically think of a visual or something that, is said or posted. Or
logo, the motto, the
whatever.
Tagline, yeah.
But your responses in your business and how you represent the business and as far as like how you show up, like you said, the customer service, all that kind of stuff, to me that's a huge part of branding too, because that can be your brand. Oh yeah, these guys here, they take care of you. They're going to make sure to do X, Y, Z. They're going to go above and beyond. That a brand alone, I mean, we do have that reputation in our around the area here, and to me, I'd almost rather people know, if they hear the name FIP, think of the fact that, oh yeah, we take care of our customers even before they even recognize my logo. Yeah. Just the name recognition tied to how we take care of our customers and the quality of work we do.
Yep.
I'm more okay with them remembering me for that and having that brand stuck in their mind than just a visual of my logo.
Well, and like what we do with the print, right? I walked in on this conversation yesterday, and I was laughing internally because I'm like, it fits so well with what we're talking about with brand reputation and consistency, right? There was a conversation that was being had because we're printing out this massive booklet, and they were like, the one of the people in the office was like, well, this color is blue, it's not black, and you're like,
oh,
are you sure?
Yeah.
Right? And she's like, no, it's a blue black. And I'm sitting there going, I was like, what the hell is a blue black? Like, it's either black or it's not. But and then you were like, okay, nope, you see on their logo, and if you hold it in the light just right, I promise you, 99.99% of the people would not recognize that. Mm-hmm. But when you have people that care enough about how, it affects our reputation as to what the product looks like for other people when it goes out.
Yeah.
If we care enough about what your brand looks like, then we care enough about what our brand looks like. And that's kind of how that ties together. And,
Well, for us, that is our brand.
it is. It is.
What we're putting out there,
because you are taking care of someone else's brand.
Yep.
And to find people like that you can trust, not only as an employee to pick up on that kind of stuff, but as another company to find us to say, wow, they went like way deep into the weeds to determine, this was not a true black, this was this. And then there's different shades of black, which just blows my mind. So
it's like
we do it all with 4 colors. That's what's even crazy. But anyway, I won't get into all that.
Well, so what they in that particular situation, what they did was instead of providing the text as just a straight black, it was a 4-color process black. But by the way it was designed, which means now that when it's going through our press, it now has to all 4 colors have to hit it right to get that black. And so if it's off, if it shifts a little bit, it could then now make that letter or blurry, or you could even see like some of the magenta or whatever that, maybe just slightly, which again, I remember when I first started working there, one of the pressmen pointed it out to me. He's like, oh, I don't know, this looks bad. And I was looking, I was like, what's wrong with it? Because I still didn't have the eye,
yeah.
So I'm like, I don't see what's wrong. Can you tell me what's wrong about this? Because it looks good to me.
It looks horrible.
He's like, oh, here, look at this magnifying glass. I was like, well, if I gotta look at a magnifying glass, I think we're okay.
Yep. But it's that attention to detail that is so important when it comes to your brand. Emails, you were talking about consistency. Your email messaging should be consistent. How the email is structured, how it's set up. Regardless if you're one of those people that I just want plain text, I don't want anything fancy in my marketing emails, which is fine. Or if you're one of those that wants the full color spread and all this, make sure it's consistent. Make sure it looks good, because people will judge you. I mean, we're always judging. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody's judging everything, and that's how we make decisions.
Yep.
I'm deciding on what's the best option for me, and I do that through my judgment.
Yep.
So when I see inconsistent messages, when I see FIP does a video on this thing, but then I get an email and it says something different, or the logos are different, then it's like, oh, is this the same company? So I think this conversation about branding is so spot on, because when you really start to pay attention to the world around you, you can pick up on the ones that aren't consistent and the ones that are.
Yeah.
And the ones that are consistent, they're the ones that are thriving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not everybody's got the money of the big players that, are constantly, but man, the ones that have the money, you definitely know their logo, and because they're out there. Even some of our competition, as annoying it is sometimes, because their song gets stuck in my head. I'm like, no, can I have the competitions?
You're singing a Vistaprint jingle,
Vistaprint or Forwardprint or whatever is like, the $1 billion a year companies, but those, but they are consistent. They are there, and that's why they continue to thrive, is because they're putting money back into marketing, putting their brand out there.
Yep.
And that's just how you do it. So, but I think that kind of really covers for the most part.
Yeah, I think that covers a lot. I'd like to see if anybody has any questions, drop them in the comments.
Yeah, we're always willing to obviously communicate, talk. If there's anything, I think in our comments or in the description we should have our website, email, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, just throw it in the comments on this video, and we'd love to answer any questions or just comments. Just communicate with us. That's awesome. If you haven't liked and subscribed yet, please do so. And next episode, like he mentioned, we will be talking about finding your avatar. And when I say that, basically that means finding your customer base that you need to target, and how you kind of go about that process. So tune into that next week. And again, thank you for joining us. And till next week, let's continue to go together.
It's time to step up, yeah, it's grind time, no more letting up, no, running faster, further, no more running up, yeah, giving my all, no more giving up, listen to me, stand.